My name is Jan Wheeler, and I've been attending this church for the past 26 years. I moved to Mattoon, and one of my neighbors saw me out walking with my children, and she came outside and spoke to me and said that I had children that would be great in some of the choirs we have here at our church, our Cherubs Choir, which my children were that age at the time. And so she recommended attending this church. I'd only lived here a couple of days and had not been to our church yet. So yes, I attended church, and then in the fall, my children began in the choirs and in the youth groups. They all got involved in different aspects of our church: Sunday school, choirs, youth groups eventually. And so mainly it was because of the children's programs here. This church is my extended family. I'm not originally from Mattoon, so I depend on this church to be my support group and to be my family away from home. I've been through many different trials and tribulations throughout my life, and I've felt this church family lifting me up and supporting me, and I felt their prayers and the strength from God through those prayers. The purpose of Grief Share is to let people know that their grief is unique. It is unique to every individual, and it's perfectly okay to grieve, but it also, as a group, you end up realizing that these other people that you're with are going through the same emotions that you are, and it's such a good support group because everyone can relate to grief in that group. And not everyone on the outside knows exactly what it feels like to have grief that close to your life, to touch your heart that way. I attended Grief Share 3 years ago after my husband had passed away. And Grief Share was very important to me at that time because I had been away from my church family for almost 6 months. I came back and immediately started Grief Share, and then I actually went through it a second time, and it had a different meaning even at that point. Grief Share has been an important part of my life, and at the time I knew God would use it for good. So at this time in my life, I've actually been working as one of the leaders with the Grief Share group that started this fall. I've been leading and participating in Grief Share because I feel like this is God put me through grief, and I've come out on the other side, and now I've got this experience behind me. I knew that God would want me to be using this to help other people with their grieving times and to offer this class and support to other people that are going through grief and different stages of grief at this time in their lives. I knew that as I was leading up to my husband's passing, that grief was very real in my life and that God was going to use that for good somehow. And I knew through the entire time that my husband was ill that God was there with me the entire time. He showed me that several different times on different occasions where he was so close to me that I could actually feel him surrounding me. So I knew that the grief experience I went through was something that I needed to share with others because God used that experience. He put me through that, and now I need to be there to support others going through the same hurts, the same grief that I've dealt with. God's working in our church in many different aspects. We have the grief class, we have a divorce class, we also have parenting classes, which I think are all support groups that are very necessary to our community and to our church family. I think that our Sunday school classes are very important to our church. Also, everything that we offer for our youth. I know that all 3 of my children were raised in our church, and I know what the youth group meant to them and where they're at in their lives. They were raised in the church and they remain in the church, and they're very strong in their relationship with God. If there's anything I would want to share with our church, it would be that I know that while my husband was ill and I was away from Mattoon for 6 months, how I felt their prayers and I felt how close God was to me, and I've never felt closer to God throughout any experience in my life. I know that my church was there. I know that they were praying for me. I know that I had to check in every Saturday with our minister and let Ken know exactly how everything was going in my life, because Sunday morning he was going to be inundated with people asking. So I know how supportive our church is. I know how important they are to me. and they're as important. They are my family.